Now let's see this question. In this question, the average monthly salary of male employees of a company is $2,500. This video is copyright. Welcome to Wisdom Education Services. Now we are going to do allegation on average. You must have gone through weighted average in our last video. So we're going to build something incredible on weighted average, which is not going to only help you in the topic average but other topics as well. So we'll get to that later. So first of all, let me just summarize what we did in weighted average. So let's suppose if N1 items has average as A1 and N2 items has their average as A2, which would mean that the total average would be N1 times A1 plus N2 times A2 divided by N1 plus N2. Those of you who do not understand this, I would please recommend you to go ahead and see a last video on weighted average as about how this expression came. So we are going to build on this expression now. Now as N1A1 plus N2A2 is the total sum of the items and N1 plus N2 is the total number of the items. As we know that average is equal to the total sum divided by the total number of items. And let me write this figure as this. Now this figure states, this is written in such a way to show you the expression. Let me just get my pen. Now this is A1, the average of the A1 item. This is A2, the average of the A2 items. So these are all the rates. So these are all the rates. And these are the N1, the number of N1 items and the N1 of number items. So this is the ratio. You can say this is the ratio, or these are the number of items. And this here is the average, which is calculated by this expression. This is the average. Now I can say that N1 times A1 plus N2 times A2 divided by N1 plus N2 is equal to A. Now what is the use of this expression? Now let's see what this expression is used for. Why am I writing this expression in terms of this diagram? So let's go ahead and watch in our next slide, right? So in this next slide I'm going to write the same expression, right? So what we have is N1 plus A1, N1A1 plus N2A2 divided by N1 plus N2 is equal to A. This is equal to A, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to perform some operations on this this expression and see what we come up with. So I say N1A1 plus N2A2 is equal to A times N1 plus A times N2. So what I've done is I've just taken this expression here towards this side. So I've just cross multiplied it. So N1A1, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this expression to here, and I'm going to bring this expression to here so I can take common, right? So this would give me N1A1 minus N1 times A, that will be equal to N2 times A minus N2A2. So what I'm going to do is, since N1 is common here and N2 is common here, so I'm going to take them common. So if I take N1 common out of here, so what do I get is, it's A1 minus A, and if I take N2 common out of here, I get A minus A2. So just by bringing n2 by n1, I get is, from this equation I get this one. I hope everyone is understanding what I'm doing here. That will be equal to a minus a of 2 divided by a1 minus a. So what I have this expression, I said this is n1 here, that is a minus a2. So this minus this, it's going to give you this, and this minus this is going to give you this. So it's in simple expression. So what I did is I just took the weighted average equation and formed the equation in terms of the ratio of the both items, and I got an expression here. So guys, this is always going to be a modulus because ratio cannot be negative. So n2 would be the difference between these two numbers, and n1 would be the difference between these two numbers. So let's use this expression in questions so that we can solve the questions very easily. So let's go and see our first problem here. So let me just first summarize my point here. The point says if average of a group of n1 items is a1 and the average of other group of n2 items is a2 and the average of both groups is a, then n1 ratio n2 would be a minus a2 divided by a minus a1. So we have to take the modulus because ratio can never be negative. So let's see what we can get here, or we can draw it in terms of this diagram as well. So this here is nothing but n1, and this here is nothing but n2. Now let's move ahead and see what we can how we can solve questions using this method. So let's see this question here. So in this question, the average weight of all the boys of a class is 148 pounds and that of girls is 124 pounds. So we have to find the average weight of all the students in the class. So now just putting into this expression, so we have a1 as 148 and a2 as 124. Now guys, we have a1, we have a2, but we do not have a, or we do not have the ratio. Since we don't have both these things, so we cannot be, will not be able to answer the question. Why? Because it depends upon the number of boys and the number of girls what the average of the class is going to be. Let's suppose there is only one girl and there are 10 boys. The average is going to be more towards 148, and if there are more girls than boys, then the average is going to be lesser. So we will not be able to answer this question, right? I hope everyone understood this. So in this question we will not be able to answer it because we do not know the ratio or we do not know the average. So we need either of these to find the average of the class. So let's move ahead to our next question here. So now in this question, it's a similar kind of question as it was earlier, but in this question a1 is equal to a2. So as you can see here, a1 is equal to a2. So it doesn't matter what number of boys are there in the class, what number of girls are there in the class, the average is always going to remain 148 pounds. Because the average is same, it doesn't matter how many boys are there or how many girls are there, the average of all the class is always going to be 148 pounds. So the answer here would be 148 pounds. It was a pretty easy question. Now let's get to some real examples over here. And that of all the female employees is $2,000 and 40% of the employees are female. We have to find the average salary of all the employees of that company. Now, what do we have in this question? Now let's examine this question and summarize this question first so that you understand it. So in this question, there are male employees and their average salary is $2,500, and there are female employees, their average salary is $2,000, and 40% of the employees are female. So how many employees are female is 40%. So if 40% of the percentage of the employees are females, which means that 60% of the employees are males. So hence I can say that they are in the ratio 40:60, or dividing the whole ratio by 20, I can say that males and females are in the ratio 2:3. So female is to male ratio is 2:3. Or I can say that males is to female ratio is 3:2. So I've been given that the average of the male employees is given as $2,500. So the average of male employees is $2,500, and the average of female employees is $2,000. So I'm going to write it down here. The average of female employees is $2,000. So what I have to do now, I have to find the average of all the employees. Now the ratio of males is to females is 3:2. So out of every 5 employees in the company, 3 are males and 2 are females. So what I have to do is I have to find the average here. Now what I can do, I can simply use the weighted average formula and just apply it here and find the answer. So by using simple weighted average, that will be 2,500 times 3, which would be 7,500, plus 2,000 times 2, which would be $4,000, divided by 3 plus 2. That will be equal to, so 7,500 plus 4,000, that will be equal to 115,000. So that is what the total sum is. Dividing by the total number of members, the answer will come to be 2,300. So the average salary of all the employees is $2,300, and the answer is right here. So what we have done is we've just applied simple weighted average formula, that is the average of, first of all, I completed everything in a diagram. So if 40% are females, that means 60% are males. So that means that the females is to male ratio is 2:3, or males is to female ratio is 3:2. The average of males is 2,500 and that of females is 2,000, and these are the ratio. And just using the weighted average formula, that is 2,500 times 3, that is 7,500, 2,000 times 2, that is 4,000, dividing it by N1 plus N2. Now this here is N1A1 plus N2A2 divided by N1 plus N2. Now the other way I could do this question really easily is by just putting the options right here. Now if I put 2,300 right here, I could have solved the answer more easily. Now if you put 2,300 right here, 22,000 minus 2,300 gives me 300 here, and the 2,500 minus 2,300 gives me 200 here. So again the ratio comes out to be 3:2, which means that 2,300 is the answer. You can check it like this as well after you have completed it through the normal method. So over here our answer is 2,300. So now let's move to the next question and see what we can get there. Now in this question, 60% of the class are boys, and the average marks of the boys in the test is 60 and that of students is 64. So we have to find the average marks of all the girls in that test. So it's again the similar kind of question just we like had in the previous question. So over here the number of boys is 60%. So if number of boys are 60%, that will definitely state that the number of girls are 40%. This is a very simple thing to do. So that means the boys and girls ratio, that would be 60:40, or dividing the whole equation by 20, I could say that the ratio is 3:2. So that means the boys ratio girls is 3:2. So I'll just write it down here, 3:2. And the average marks of all the boys in the test is 60. So the average of boys is 60. So the average of boys is 60. So average of girls is something that which I don't know. So that is what I have to find out. The average marks of girls, which I'll assume to be X. So average of marks of girls I've assumed to be X. And I've been given the average of all the students right here. That means all the students average is 64. So what I have to do is, again, simple. I have to use the weighted average formula. That is 60 times 3, which is 180, plus 2 times X. This is 2 here and this is X here. 2 times X, which is equal to 2X. Then dividing it by 3 plus 2, which is equal to 5. That will give me 64. So again, I've got an equation. So all I have to do is I have to solve for X. So what I'll do is I'll take the 5 to that side. So 180 plus 2 times X is equal to 320. Now this is a simple linear equation which I have to solve. So 2X is equal to 320 minus of, now I'm taking 180 to that side. So 320 minus 180, that would be 140. So by this, I can see that X comes out to be 140 by 2 because I'm taking 2 down here. So 140 by 2 is 70. So now this is what I have as my answer, that the average marks of all the girls in that test is 70. Now let me go ahead and take a quick recap here, that the 60% of the class are boys, which states that 40% would be girls. So 60:40. The boys ratio girls would be 3:2. So all I have to do is just make the allegation diagram again. So 3:2 is right here. The average of boys is given to me as 60, and I assume the average of girls to be X, and the total average was given to me as 64. Just apply the simple weighted average formula, that is N1 times A1 plus N2 times A2 divided by N1 plus N2 will give me 64, which would state that X is 70. Or I could easily solve this question by hit and trial method as well. I could have tried putting options here and see if the ratio is coming 3:2. So if you put X equal to 70 here, you could see that the equation is giving you 3:2, because 70 minus 64 is 6 and 60 minus 64 is 4. Guys, I always have to take positive values, and 6:4 is again equal to 3:2. So I've checked my answer, and if you don't want to go through this long method, what you can do is you can simply put an option which is a hit and trial method, right? So let's move to our next problem. The next question says that a student scored 60%, 70% and 80% marks in 3 tests. We have to find the aggregate percentage. Now most of you will be saying, okay, add 60, add 70 and add 80 divided by 3, you'll get your answer. But let me show you, you won't get your answer. Let me assume that the maximum marks are out of 100 here. So the maximum marks are 100, the maximum marks are 100 and the maximum marks are 100. So how much did he score? He scored 60 here, he scored 70 here, and he scored 80 here. So adding it all up, dividing it by 3, I'll get 60 plus 70 plus 80, which comes out to be 210 by 3. But that comes out to be 70%. Okay, most of you will be saying, okay, 70% in the answer. Let me show you one more thing here again. Let me assume that the maximum marks here were 200. Let me assume the maximum marks. A test can be of 200 marks as well, right? So out of 200, if he scored 60%, so he must have scored 120 marks here. And out of 100, let's suppose he scored 70 here again. And out of 100, let's suppose he scored 80 here again. So again, now these are the marks. What I have to do is I have to add it and again divide it by 3 to calculate the aggregate percentage. Now that comes out to be 150 plus 120, that is 270 by 3, which is equal to 90. Now as I can see here, I'm getting different answers when I assume different maximum marks. Hence the aggregate percentage depends upon the maximum marks, which are not given in this question. As you can see, you're not being told anything about the aggregate marks. So hence we will not be able to solve this answer. Hence the answer would be cannot say. But if the ratio of the aggregate marks would have been given, then you could be able to answer the question. So let's see this question. It's a similar kind of question here, in which the maximum marks are in the ratio 1:2:3. Now it's very easy for you to solve. Let me just make the diagram for you. So he scored 60% and its ratio part is 1. He scored 70% in another test and its maximum marks are 2. And he scored 80% here and its maximum marks are 3. So this would be the average. Now apply simple weighted average. That will be 60 times 1, that is n1 into a1, 60, plus 70 times 2, that is n2 into a2, which is 70 times 2 is 140, plus 80 times 3, which is nothing but 240, and dividing it by 1 plus 2 plus 3. So now this is what my weighted average would look like. So what I have to do is I just have to solve it. So 60 plus 140, and I have to add 240. So that will come out to be 440, and dividing it by 6, because 3 plus 2 plus 1 over here is 6. So dividing it by 6, I'll get 73.33. So that is my answer here. So I hope you understood that in case the aggregate percentage is not given to me, the maximum marks is not given to me, then I will not be able to answer the question, because different maximum marks will give different answer. As I can say that the 60% can mean that I got 60 out of 100, or this could mean I got 120 out of 200 as well. So let me move to the next problem here. So in this question, the average age of all the male employees of a company is 34 years, and that of female employees is 30 years, and the average age of all employees is 31.5 years. Now it's again a simple question. Now all the male employees average is 34 years, and all the female employees is 30 years. Let me just read the question back to you again so you can understand what is asked here. So the average age of all the male employees is given to me 34, and that of females is given to me 30, and that of all the employees is given to me as 31.5. So what I have to do is simple. I just have to apply allegation and find the ratio. Now these are the males here, and these are the females here. Their average is this, and their average is this, and the overall average is 31.5. So all I have to do is I have to find the ratio. Now this part here, now this is n1 ratio n2. If you see the diagram that we just did in the definition, so that you can see there. So n1 is nothing but this minus this, that would be equal to 1.5, that is 31.5 minus 30, and this minus this would be 2.5, because 34 minus 31.5 is 2.5. So hence the ratio, if I multiply the ratio with 10, is 15:25, which is nothing but 3:5. So hence my answer is 3:5. So let me take a quick recap here again. The average age of all the male employees of a company was 34 years, and that of female employees was 30 years, and the average age of all the employees was 31.5 years. So I have to find the ratio of female employees to male employees. So the male employees average part is this, and the female employees average part is this, and the overall average part is this. So I just have to apply the basics of allegation, and I found the ratio. 3:5 is the answer. So now let me go ahead to the next problem. Now this is going to be a tricky one. Let let it just come. Okay, so there are three math classes, X, Y, and Z, and they take an algebra test, and the average score in class X is 83, and in class Y it's 76, and in class Z in 85. The average score of all the students in this classes X and Y together is 79, and the average score of all students in Y and Z is 81. So I have to find the average score of all the classes together. So let's take a quick look at the question. Now this question is the average score of X is given to me as 83. The average score of Y is given to me as 76. Let me write it 2 times so that just help you in solving the question easily. And the average score of Z is given to me as 85. Now average score of this X and Y together, that is X and Y together, is given to me as 79. And the average score of Y and Z together, that is Y and Z together, is given to me as 81. So what I have to do is to simply find the ratio. So what will be X ratio Y? That would be 79 minus 76, that is 3 here, and 83 minus 79, that is 4 here. So again, what would be Y ratio Z? That would be 85 minus 81, that is 4 here, and 76 minus 81, that is 5 here. So I can, what conclusion did I come up to? That X ratio Y, it's nothing but 3 ratio 4. And Y ratio Z, it's nothing but 4 ratio 5. So using the simple basic ratio proportion properties, I've got X ratio Y ratio Z. That is 3 ratio 4 ratio 5. So this is the ratio of all the three classes, and I know they're individuals as well. That is 83, 76, and 85. So now it's nothing, it's just a simple question now. So the ratios I have and the averages I have, so just apply the weighted average formula, and I can see that it's 83 times 3 plus 76 times 4 plus 85 times 5 by 3 plus 4 plus 5. So this is what I have now. Now this is a simple equation now, which if I solve, the upper part would come to be 83 times 3, that is 249, and 76 times 4, that is 304, and 85 times 5, that is 425. So if I add all of them, the sum will come out to be 978, and divided it by 3 plus 4, 7, 7 plus 5, 12. So my answer would be 81.5. So this is my answer here. Oh, so let me take a quick recap here again as well. The quick recap is that, let me just do that. Okay, the quick recap here is, I'm sorry, it's taking a while. Okay, so there were three math classes, X, Y, and Z, and they took an algebra test. The average score was X was 83, the average score of Y was 76, and of Z was 85. X and Y together was 79, Y and Z together was 81. So what I did is I wrote the individuals and I wrote the corresponding together, the average of both of them. So this is the average of X, this is the average of Y, this is the average of both X and Y. Using the allegation method, I found its ratio 3 ratio 4. Over here, y ratio z is 4 ratio 5. So since x ratio y is 3 ratio 4 and y ratio z is 4 ratio 5, so x ratio y ratio z is 3 ratio 4 ratio 5. So from this I just applied the simple weighted average formula and my answer came out to be 81.5. So I hope this helps you. So alright, so let's move to our next problem. So in this problem, I'm just going to be quick about this problem because I just want you to solve it. So I'm just going to write down the solution for you. So over here, 20 liters of 80% concentrated milk is mixed with 30 liters of 60% concentrated milk. Now remember, alligation can be used in any topic. It can be average, it can be profit and loss, it can be mixtures, it can be interest. Whenever two things mix and they make a particular ratio, alligation can be used. So over here, what I have to make sure is that my diagram, everything is in the same form. If I'm using concentrated milk, everything should be in concentrated milk's form. So so what I have is, I have 80% concentrated milk here and I have 60% concentrated milk here, and I have to find the resultant concentration, and they're mixed in 20 ratio 30. So it's simple, or I can say they are mixed in the ratio 2 ratio 3. So it's pretty simple for me now. So what I have to do is I just have to apply the weighted average, because I have to find this middle A. That would be 80 times 2, that is 160, plus 60 times 3, that is 180, divided by 3 plus 2, that is 5. That is equal to 160 plus 180, that is 340, divided by 5. That comes out to be 68. So we got the concentration as 68%. I hope it helped you all. So in this question, the 80% concentrated milk was there and 60% concentrated milk was there. So we had to find the resultant concentration, and they were mixed in the ratio of 2 ratio 3. So what we had to find is the resultant concentration of milk. So we just used the simple weighted average formula and nothing more. Or what you could have done is, you could have put 68% right here from hit and trial method and checked if the ratio is coming 2 ratio 3. Your answer would be right. So this ends our alligation and mixtures problem. So what you can do is, you can visit our website called education.wisdomimmigration.com for more practice, and in case if you need any help, you can call this helplines. And the first helpline is for Canada and the second is for India. We have 2 offices as well. You can visit there as well. So in the next video, we would be doing the average speed topics, and well, I hope you understood all the problems that are associated with allegations, and please do practice, because practice will make you more than perfect. Thank you very much. See you next video.